So before we handle the typing, I'm going to make two minor adjustments. Instead of appending the letter here, we're supposed to append the span div. Okay. And instead of just accessing the letter, let's also access the letter as well as the index. So then we can do something like this. Span.id is equal to, let's call it character. And which character? We're going to use the index as the character ID. Okay, so later on, we can select this and change the background easily. And then down here, I'll call handle typing, which we're going to define right now. So function handle typing, all that this is going to do is it's going to do a document.onKeyPress. And yes, it's deprecated, but it's perfect for this. Okay. So what happens when they click on a key press? Well, before that, we actually need a few variables to keep track of our state, right? Because we need to keep track if they got the right characters, how many mistakes. We need to keep a timer as well, right? So let timer equal to 0. If we're keeping timer, that means we're going to need set intervals. So let's do let my interval be equal to null for now. And then we have to count the mistakes also. Let mistakes equal to 0. And we also need to know what current index are we on in the string that we're typing. Current index is equal to 0. Okay. So when they press a key after we render the text, we want to know, hey, which div are you currently on right now? Okay, so const character div, this is the current character div that they're on. And that's going to be equal to document.query selector. And remember, we gave this an ID of char. How do we get the index? That's from the current index right here. Okay. So this will always be the first character that they're on when they press a key. Okay. So this will change every time they press a key. Now we need to know the current character div, but also the next div, right? Because if they type the first character right, that div turns green, and the next character's div should start blinking with a blinking cursor. So the user knows that, hey, I'm on this next character. And that's actually just character div dot next element sibling, like so. Now, how do we know when they type a character correct? Well, you do if e.key, right? And e.key will return the string that you typed or the characters. If e.key is equal to the current character div dot text content, right? If those two are equal, then we know that they typed in the right character. If they typed in the right character, that means we're going to move on from this current index to the next index, right? And then our current character div dot style dot background, let's set it to green, like so. Okay, so right here I'm going to type Philip. Okay. See, when I press the P correctly, it turns green. If I press the H correctly, it also turns green, right? Right now, nothing's happening if I type it wrong, but we're going to handle that next. Before that, we have to handle how to make this eye start blinking right here. So the easiest way to do that, so we set the current div's background to green, and then we're going to set the next div. Okay, but you need the optional chain operator question mark, because sometimes next div won't exist and you'll get an error, right? Let's say you're on the last character of the string, the next div will be undefined and this will give you an error. But with the question mark, it won't. So next div dot class list dot add, and we're going to handle how to make it blink in CSS. And I'll call this class has blink. Now in CSS, let's handle that. To do something like that, easiest way for me is keyframes, and I will call this keyframe name blink. I like to do all capitals for the keyframes, and then all it's going to do is when it's at 0, it's going to go opacity 100, opacity 1, I mean, and then when it's at 100%, it's going to go opacity 0. Okay, and we can run this indefinitely. Now let's do our has blink. It's gonna run the animation right here. What's our animation name? It's the one that we have right here. Okay. How long do we want it to run from 0 to 100%. Let's say 2 seconds. Okay, and we want the 2 seconds to repeat itself indefinitely. Okay, all right, so now let's test this on the right. If I type a bunch of stuff, A, the next one starts blinking. A again, but look, here's our problem. They're all starting to blink. We don't want the previous ones to blink, right? That's actually pretty easy. All you have to do right here is char div, and we're gonna check if we can remove the has blink. And remember, this on key press will run every single time you type. So these will always be up to date. Okay, let's try again. A, S, D. See, now the F is blinking, but none of these are blinking. If I type F, it stops blinking and the D is now blinking. Okay, let's handle what happens when they get this wrong. And it's a little bit harder than you might think. Okay, let's handle the mistakes counter. In HTML, I'm going to create an H2 with the ID of mistakes. Now, in here, what happens if they get it wrong? What if we just do else? And then let's select our H2. Document.getElement by ID. And then, oh my gosh. Oh yeah, it was mistakes. Okay. So .text content, and I'll show you something cool. You can just say current mistakes is equal to plus plus mistakes, because of how the plus plus operator works when you put it before a variable. This way you don't have to do 2 assignments to get it to render. Okay, so let's see. If I type in a bunch of things, see if I miss it, mistake 1, but it keeps on going up, right? So the problem is, let's look at the finished product. So let me type this. If I type the A wrong, and then I mistype, it doesn't increase the mistakes, right? It's waiting for you to fix the A, and then if you miss the next letter, then it goes up. But right now, ours is not doing that. If I miss the S here, it keeps on going up, okay? So how do we fix that? Well, let me copy this. So instead of an else, we have to do else if. So else if char div dot data set, let's call this dot tried, because we haven't set this yet. So if this doesn't exist, it means this is our first time getting this letter wrong. If it's our first time getting it wrong, then we're gonna set this to true, so it doesn't run the second time, okay? And since this is the first time, we can actually just increase, right? So document dot get element by ID, mistakes. I hate my new keyboard, I'm not used to it. Text content is equal to current mistakes, and then plus plus mistakes. Okay, so let's try it again. All right, so now if we miss it, it doesn't go up. It's waiting for you to fix it to get it green. And now if I miss the D, then it goes up by 1. So now it's 2. Okay, if I miss it again, then it's 3. Okay, all right. So now here is where you can also say, let's do char div style background is equal to red. Okay, so now we're almost done. Let's try the default. See? So now we have the red, and if we fix it, it turns to green. But how do we make it so that if you miss a character and you fix it, it turns to yellow, like in the finished product? So let's say I missed this F, and then I fix it, it turns to yellow. How do we do that? Well, it's actually very simple. Since we have this right here, let's come up here when we're setting it to green. But now we're gonna set it using a ternary operator, okay? So let's say if this is the first time, then it's green, okay? If not, let's do gold. Okay, let's go to our own A, and then I fix it, see, it turns to gold. D, I get it right the first time, it's green. A, I get it right. S, I miss it, and then I fix it, it's yellow and the mistakes are actually correct. And then D. Okay, so now we have to deal with how do we know when we're done, right? Because right now we're done, but it doesn't do anything.